Hi there, and welcome to the latest edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the independent podcast which is brought to you by fans for fans and where the content is free. It's a preview show tonight. We're looking at the Motherwell game on Sunday, and we'll have a wee squint at Wednesday night's disappointment against Aberdeen. As I say every week, guys, it's not just the pod we have here at Gersnet. We have, match previews, match reviews, all that kind of stuff. There's the forums, there's a history archive on the website as well. Obviously, Frankie's got his social media, so get yourself onto that. If you enjoy what we do here at Gersnet, please give us a wee like and a subscription on our YouTube channel. I've got two guests tonight. I'm joined by Stewart, Weir, and Alex Anderson's piggybacked in at the last minute there. Wormed his way in. How are you, Stewart? How are you getting on?
I am. I'm doing well. All the better for Alex making a guest appearance. It's a bit like the Who suddenly being on stage with Noel Gallagher. So I'm really looking forward to his one string banjo coming in later on.
What about you, Ek? How are you?
All the better for that introduction by Stewart there, Colin. Yes, you have to tell the listeners and the viewers what we were talking about before we came on air about how a two-piece Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan, yeah. Someone made a comparison to me once that Bob Dylan's considered a genius because he plays guitar and harmonica at the same time. He says, but if you pass a guy in the high street and he's took that extra step to put a drum on his back, you consider him a dafty.
That's it.
So you're the drum on the back.
I am the drum on the back tonight. That's it. It's Frankie sent me in here. I'm like Yoko Ono trying to split you two up. You're getting too powerful. You're going to form a breakaway, so I better come in here and muck things up for you.
That's it. Yeah, well, the more the merrier. That's what I say. Right, guys, I thought we would have a quick look at obviously a really disappointing result on a poignant night. Obviously, the first game since Walter Smith sadly passed away. I thought we'd have a wee look at the Aberdeen game. Again, another disappointing result. Disappointing night overall, really. And obviously, we'll have a wee look at the Motherwell game on Sunday, which is now becoming a huge game considering Celtic will probably be top of the league after Saturday's game. So, Stuart, I'll come to you first. Kind of more of the same on Tuesday night there or Wednesday night. More drop points at home. I think that's 3 out of the last 4 games at Ibrox. We've dropped points. Just another poor performance, and we keep on waiting for this team. You keep on hearing that they'll click. It's just a matter of time before they click. I've been saying for a while now that this is us in late September, October. Over the weekend we're going into November and we're still waiting on this team to click. And a poor night again overall, I suppose.
Yeah, we seem to be a bit like a broken record when we review Rangers' performances. We keep picking up on the same faults and failings week in, week out. And again, it's the promise of, well, they'll get it right the next time that I think lifts the spirits. But, you're absolutely spot on. We're now entering into November and there is no sign that Rangers have settled down either in terms of how they are approaching matches or indeed the kind of formation or team that's approaching these matches. And that's a bit of a concern. It's November, December, January, February are the months where the league title is usually won or lost, dare I say it, because you're looking for the teams with the more powerful squads to start to grind out the results that other teams just can't do. But it seems to be Rangers are having to grind out results just to get draws. Fir Park's not the easiest place to go. I mean, I think anybody that's been watching football over a long enough period of time will remember. Ironic, in fact, that in a week of Walter Smith's passing, one of the most nearly catastrophic results in Rangers history took place at Fir Park when, if there had been a goal down against Motherwell and just let the game go, all would have been, Rangers were only near a draw against Aberdeen the following Saturday, 1991. And instead of that, they went chasing a draw or even tried to chase a victory and lost by 3-0.
Yeah.
Hence the reason why they had to win on the Saturday. So it will not be an easy game for Rangers. I still think they'll actually win this tie or win this league match. I still think they'll have too much. I think that it's about time. I'm expecting a performance from one or two of these guys, but all in all, Rangers still appear to be quite a disjointed unit, and I think that's why there's genuine concerns amongst all of the support as to what's going to happen next.
Alex, I mean, last season, one of the main things about Rangers and how they won that title was the fact that they just didn't concede. You know what I mean? We just did not concede goals. This season, it's just the total opposite. We're conceding every week, and 2 down, within the first 20 minutes on Wednesday night. And I'd sort of said on last week's show that I kind of got the impression that St Mirren were trying to get the second goal really quickly on Sunday, because I think there's a feeling, because Rangers aren't scoring a lot, if you get 2 goals, then the very least you're getting is a draw, because I think outside Livingston, the Rangers scored 3 this season in the league. So it's, I mean, I'll focus on the defence at the moment. The main point I'm trying to get here is we're conceding an alarming rate, and it's a big concern, because at the moment it feels like Rangers have to score 2 at least to win a game.
Aye, and I think it's symptomatic of how we're kind of regarding this start to the season. I think we're all, as you're saying, we're all waiting for it to kick on. We're all waiting for us to do that classic kind of champions thing where slow start, but then we start motoring away, and makes the likes of me look a bit silly for ever having worried about it. And we can't nail down exactly what the problem is either. I mean, we're not picking up the same amount of points, obviously, but I was just I was just looking at it, comparing it to this point last season after the first round of league games. And funnily enough, our 11th game last season was at Parkhead. I don't know how that happened.
No, well,
the first
strange one that,
October. I don't know what that was about. I don't know what happened to the Sonic conspiracy that night. But we're 5 points worse off. And at this point last season, we were 4 points ahead of Celtic after that game, and Celtic had a game in hand. And we're 2 points ahead of Celtic, and Celtic are in the same amount of games. And when you consider how amazing our form was last season, kind of singularly amazing, I won't panic too much, because it's no, at the end of the day, it's not that bad. It's not that bad a difference. We see Celtic coming on now. We're panicking maybe because we've had so many home games. We've only had 6 home games. They've been against, kind of key opponents. But even then, we have beaten Celtic. We have beaten Hibs. And this is the problem. We're beating Celtic with like a third string goalkeeper, a third string fullback. And then we're slipping up against Aberdeen when we've got more than enough on the park to do the business. There seems to be there's not even any kind of easily definable thing to throw your hat on and say that is the one problem. That's what's happening. I mean, which is in many ways is even worse, because I'm looking at last season at this point. We'd scored 26 goals. We've only scored 19 at this point. We'd only lost 3 goals last season. We've lost 10 at this point. Yeah. I'd like to think we'll maybe lose another 2 in Sunday, and then just for the sheer hell of it, we'll beat last season's defensive record. But I don't think that's going to happen. They'll just go the rest of the season without conceding a goal after that. But it's just, you're looking at the amount of injuries we've had, but there's still enough players there. We've got the squad is big enough. We've got the talent there. That the win against Celtic when we were down, our manager wasn't even in the ground, proves that we can do it when we want to. And I can't help hoping, I can't help thinking, the way this Rangers team have always been to a certain extent is I think they get bored. I genuinely think when James Tavernier said that thing, I'm going to hark back to it in the programme notes before the Braga game, about how they didn't like it when the pressure was on them. People took that as meaning they didn't like all Thurm games or whatever. And they can't help beating Celtic. They're beating Celtic with their eyes shut, practically. They love the big games. I think, like the other night, like you're saying, we need to go a goal down before we wake up. I'm going to give them a pass for the other night. I know how I felt going to Ibrox in Wednesday night. I basically couldn't have cared less about the game, and I would never put the pressure on the players to try and make up for, to try and give us a result. Nothing's going to compensate for the passing of Walter Smith. And we're asking players to care about the club. And I think, they're having a minute's silence in the training pitch on Tuesday. The players are laying wreaths on the Wednesday. So is the management team. Stephen Gerrard's in tears on the telly. And that's all proper. That's what I prefer. That was the only concern I had. I want them doing that. I want the players paying their respects to Walter Smith, the whole club paying its respects. We don't, and I think I can't help thinking that maybe bled into what happened in Wednesday night. Walter Smith would never use that as an excuse. I know Stephen Gerrard wouldn't either. But there was a really flat feeling all around the club. Basically the club's grieving for its kind of greatest manager of the modern period, and a guy that we all felt was part of the family. So I can't really blame them for what happened on Wednesday. I'm going to give them a pass for that, but it speaks to what's been happening for the rest of the season. It was in line with what's been happening for the rest of the season, and we need a spark. We need something to set us off, and hopefully we'll get that on Sunday.
Just touching upon what Alex said there about the stats and the goals that Rangers have scored and the points where they were last season. That equation is slightly skewed by the fact that Rangers were beaten by Dundee United when last season they didn't have any defeats on their record. So it tilts things slightly. But I again, just to absolutely, agree with what they were saying there. Everybody to a man, woman, child who frequents Ibrox is waiting for this spark to arrive. And the only way you're going to get this spark is if actually the Rangers players find it themselves. Stephen Gerrard can give them, and Gary McAllister and whoever it might be, can give them as many instructions and as many commands and as many scenarios as they like during the course of the week. I still think there are one too many not really bursting themselves to either make the runs, make the passes, or above all else, be as brave as they should be. You're playing you're the champions of Scotland. You're playing for Rangers in front of 50,000. That should be the ideal scenario for you to go out and want to play at your very, very best and to try things and to hope things come off. I mean, I joked on Twitter the other week there that if Rangers had tried to score the perfect goal when Ali McCoist was playing, he'd have ended up with 27 as his career total. You have got to gamble from every now and again to try and score that goal rather than try to play 23 passes and walk the ball. And all the time that I've watched Rangers, I think the only time they made that number of passes was against Parma, and that happened once in a European tie. It is not the norm. You've got to get the ball into the box to make the chances to score the goals. And I somehow think it's almost like there's a force field around that penalty box that players are frightened to actually step in or step up or step forward and take that chance.
It's funny, both of you sort of agree there about, waiting on the spark. I think the players are guilty of that. Rather than making it happen, they're kind of waiting on it to happen. And I saw footage today. Somebody posted up a thing on Twitter today saying what happened to this team. And it was a goal for last season. And the tempo and the 1-2 touch, players are receiving it in one touch and moving it quickly with the next. The amount of times now I see players taking a touch, taking another touch before they're releasing it. And teams are, if you're not moving it quickly enough, you're giving teams time to adjust and get bodies across. Because to me, that's kind of what modern football is about now, isn't it? It's about moving bodies across the park to create a bit of space, work the overloads, all that kind of thing. If you're not moving it quick enough, then you're in trouble. But I mean, I suppose we'd have to give them credit, Stewart, in terms of, they came back. Morelos got the goal. We got the equaliser with 10 minutes to go. The penalty. Now we need to discuss the penalty. Feels like we talk about a controversial decision every week in this podcast. And as I've said previously, honestly, and it's so boring, so boring. Although I will say this time, where I was in the Govan Weir, it was right in front of me. There's a definite pull. I mean, he absolutely has a hold of his jersey and pulls him back. I sometimes think with these kind of fouls, if the player lets go quick enough, they can get away with it. And if I'm being honest, I think Bates maybe did let it go at the right time, thought, right, I better let him go. And I think Sakala's already thought, no, you've pulled me, I'm buying this. And it's like, if there's any Celtic fans watching this, which there will be, because there always is, they'll be saying, oh, well, that means he dived and he cheated and all the rest of it. One thing I will say in defence of any striker that goes down is they have to go down sometimes, because the amount of times I see strikers getting fouled in the box and they stay in their feet and they don't get a penalty or they don't get a free kick. So to me, coaches will say to their strikers, if you get fouled, go down. So he's been pulled, he's went down, he's bought it. But to me, this notion that it's a conspiracy and all that kind of thing, utter nonsense.
There's no point in a striker staying in his feet now, because there's no reward at the end of it.
No.
It's not like rugby where the referee brings it back and says, by the way, I think that was a foul, we'll have the penalty here. That just doesn't happen in football.
No.
So a striker now, whereas before you would see guys literally getting their legs kicked out from underneath them or upended and still trying to scramble the ball into the net. Now, if you get a touch and you get down, you get down. Did I find a problem with the penalty? No. Somebody once said it's a bit like in the Bible. If you read the Bible, if there is a laying on of hands, expect a miracle. It's the exact same in the football scenario now. If you lay on hands on any striker, expect a penalty to be given.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with it. I really don't. Had it been, had it been at the other end of the pitch, I think you might have been complaining the same as others have been complaining. Yeah, if you look at the Aberdeen players, there were less complaints from the Aberdeen players than there have been in subsequent people who have watched action replays 27 times over and over. I think the Aberdeen players were on the spot, thought it was a penalty. A penalty was given, Rangers scored, and that's it. But you're taking a hell of a chance these days to have any contact like that on a striker.
Alex, I mean, I think Stewart makes an interesting point there. Bates, there's no protest really, is there? You know what I mean? And I think it could be maybe with one of these ones where if Beaton's on the other side in terms of his position, he doesn't see the pull. But where he is, I mean, it's as clear as day. I mean, as I say, I was claiming for the penalty. I was up off my feet claiming for the penalty. So to me, if you're claiming for something, I have been in that scenario when I've been the only person in the fucking stadium claiming for a penalty, by the way. I've jumped up and I'm like, well, I've seen something, but absolutely nobody else has seen it. But everyone in our area was up claiming for it. So to me, there's a definite pull. Do I think it's soft? Yeah. If it was against Rangers, would I be happy? No. But you would accept that if he's pulled his jersey, as Stewart says, you're living dangerously.
Well, the way I saw it, Colin, I'm main stand front, as you know, in line with the Copeland 6-yard box, the 6-yard line. And I was, as I said, I was flat as a pancake and mood-wise the other night. I couldn't really have cared less. I couldn't have bothered I was in a huff just with the world, and when I saw that, I just automatically shouted penalty, stonewall penalty. It wasn't even, and I think if it hadn't been given, technically it's an absolute stick on. And even sitting here trying to justify it, you're playing into the kind of conspiracy mindset of Rangers fans. Why are they trying so hard to justify it? And this is a problem we've got just now with this whole culture that's developing. I think it's part of this whole thing with the heart and hand thing, the Daily Record, the wee war going on between print media and basically fan media, mainstream media, and fan-led media. And I think your likes of your Chris Suttons, your Michael Stewarts, these guys are kind of playing to that gallery, and they know better, and they're trying to create controversy for the sake of it. They're trying to kind of stroll that middle ground between what gets said in the pub after the game and what would get said if somebody actually properly analyses it. They need to be kind of calling it calling it right. Basically, when John Hartson's posting things like, "Oh, I know how it goes," or something along those lines, it's a conspiracy.
I know more than most.
I know more than most. You know what I mean? And straight away, it's like a League Cup final. The last time there was an Old Firm League Cup final, the winning Celtic goals offside. You know, but we don't hear about that because it's all about the emphasis. It's all about how much you scream about it, rather than the actual objectively looking at the decision to see how harsh it is. I remember in Walter Smith's second period, I think Celtic had penalties against us at Parkhead, Hampden and Ibrox in successive games. And it just went unnoticed, because the law is that Rangers always get a penalty when they need one. You look at the way Rangers won the league last season. You look at the way we play this season, it's all possession, too much possession at times, as we were saying. A team that's constantly got the ball in the box is going to eventually get fouled. Yeah. And Aberdeen, as you say, were complaining about absolutely everything they could last night. They were time wasting. They were doing, as is their right to do, every trick in the book to try and disrupt us. So if they thought for a second, as you say, that wasn't a penalty, they wouldn't have got it. We got a great call by a referee who was getting barracked by the Rangers supporters all game. You know, it's actually a great call. And James McFadden is just basically saying on Sports Scene, it was a good shout. And suddenly he's a puppet of a national broadcaster, a national broadcaster who doesn't even speak to bloody Rangers. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I think there should be a law where anybody, if you support Celtic, support Rangers, you start getting a grievance about a conspiracy against you, you should be made to go and watch the likes of Motherwell 10 games in a row as punishment, obviously, but also to educate you. You watch their game, their highlights the other night against St Mirren. The penalty, what happened to Motherwell? I think it was in the end, the right decision was made at the penalty. Motherwell got a penalty, but then St Mirren equalised later on with a penalty that's then taken twice. It's saved the first time by Liam Kelly, and you still can't tell with slow motion replays if his foot was off the line or not. And you imagine that was a certain other club, it would be hell on earth. It happens to everybody, and we've seen Celtic.
There's people who have been guilty of. There's people who have been guilty of war crimes, and I wouldn't sentence them to go and watch 10 games anyway. I mean, seriously, I hope you never progress being a justice of the peace and through into and being a judge somewhere. Lord Justice Alex Anderson, and that's me.
That's me. 10 games at Fir Park.
The black, either he dons a black cap or he sends you to South or North Lanarkshire for 10 games. What's it going to be? I'll take a black cap.
Suicide watch straight away. He's got a guy sitting next to him at Fir Park just to make sure he's not getting any sharp objects on him.
Right, gents, on to Motherwell, actually, onto the game on Sunday. Stewart, it's looking like, the home form at Ibrox now, it's just not good enough. We had a healthy lead over Celtic. It's now looking like come Sunday, if they win on Saturday, they'll be top of the league. As we were talking about earlier on, Tavernier said in the programme they don't like the pressure. Well, there's going to be pressure on Sunday. If Celtic win on Saturday, we'll be I think a point behind. And we're now in this, rather than having as we've enjoyed over the last sort of year or so, having a bit of a cushion between us and them. It looks like we're entering a period of, right, if they win their game, we need to win ours, and nip and tuck and all that kind of thing. So big pressure and a big performance needed on Sunday.
Yeah, and it would be easy. I imagine, even though they've put a lot of work into the Fir Park pitch, I think by the 60th minute it might look something akin to the Somme. Given the what the weather's been like in this neck of the woods. But the whole thing about pressure isn't about how it affects you, it's how you handle it. It's not that you see it as a burden, it's how you use it to your advantage. It's how does that pressure basically, make you shrink, or does it inspire you to do or try something better? Rangers have had some good performances at Fir Park. It's a difficult place to go. I think I still think there's a number of players who struggle with the slope. Not unlike other venues where it's goal to goal. It basically
it's corner to corner, isn't it? It's behind.
It's like the north face of the Eiger. If you stand on the right or the wrong part of the ground, and I think some players struggle with that, or they make it look as if they want to struggle with it. I think there has to be, just going back to the last European tie there against Brøndby. Rangers scored early enough and then went for the kind of jugular and made it easy for themselves in the night. I did think that Brøndby kind of pulled up the undercarriage in the second half and didn't quite make it a damage limitation exercise, but I think they knew that was they were beaten and they could lose other goals should they open up. But I think that Rangers made it easy for themselves, easier, by getting the sort of earlier goals and having the game all but won by half time. And surely that has to be the model that they take forward. Get the game, get into your stride as early as possible, holding the possession stats at 78% in the first 15 minutes of a game or 20 minutes without any shots on target means absolutely hee-haw, nothing. There is not a history book or a future reference book that will basically triumph or trumpet the possession stats of any team. It's the goals that you score and the goals that you score to win matches. And I think that Rangers could help themselves greatly by getting on the front foot as early as possible and really pressing teams. The Rangers, the points that both of you made earlier on about having to score 2 goals to win a game now, whereas it used to be only 1. They're allowing other teams into the game and allowing other teams to dictate how the match will be, played out. That Rangers, if they go a goal behind, then they need to chase it, get that first goal, and everything else, I think, would fall into place. And in all seriousness, despite the performance the other night there, where I still think they take credit for coming back from 2 goals down, I still think if they get into their stride early enough, they could actually win and win comfortably on Sunday.
Alex, as we've discussed, a bit of pressure on Sunday and a big improvement needed. The one thing that sort of maybe gives you a wee bit of hope is the away form's largely been okay. The real issues are at home. Gerrard was sort of, he was getting a wee bit of scrutiny the day about the team's performances and the fact that they're dropping points and all the rest of it. And he came out with a start which was quite interesting. He sort of said, he was sort of keen to highlight that they've lost 1 game in the last 50, which is, a very impressive start, no matter what way you put it. But, as we've discussed earlier, they don't look like that team, like they've only lost 1 in 50. We do look fragile. So what do you think? Like, what has happened? What's happened to this team? Because as I said earlier on, I was watching this footage for one of the games for last season, and the way we were playing, the way the ball was getting moved about, we weren't conceding, we were scoring for fun. We looked, as it turned out, we looked invincible, and that's how it turned out. We were invincible. So what's happened? Why is that not happening now?
I think you see the game against St Mirren last Sunday. We're asleep, for the first 20 minutes, up to a half an hour, really. And then it's almost like they were shocked that it was sunny in Paisley, and more than that, the sun was actually in their eyes, and they kind of gradually worked out that you can actually, if you get the ball up into the St Mirren box, there's a bit of shade for that stand. Mm-hmm. And we just slowly came to life, and then we were scintillating, I thought, for a good 5-minute period to 10 minutes, and we got the 2 goals in quick succession. And a part of me, because we are champions, because I want to give this team a break because of everything they did for us last season, and knowing that they can reach those heights again, I'm thinking, maybe this is what they're going to do. They're just super cool. I'm panicking all through the second half because they've lost that tempo again. They've lost that. The way we start second half is absolutely terrible. The way Motherwell started the second half the other night, a couple of goals in the first 10 minutes, that could be Malmo stuff for us if we're off the boil again on Sunday. Yeah. We that's a change from last season, but it's almost like we're just going to do enough. We're just going to do enough. We've only dropped points in 1 game away. It was a loss to Dundee United, as Stewart's saying. That's a shock to the system, but it might actually look worse than it actually is because, we dropped 4 points away from home this point last season, just through 2 draws. I feel as if, I don't want to go back to talking about this spark, as if we're talking about the Transformers or whatever, the old spark need to get themselves got. We need to see that the team are actually slow starting to the season. and then they're going to take it forward. I don't want to look like the classic spoiled Rangers fan. A month down the line, you were slagging that team, and look at them now; they're sweeping all before them. I think it's important to remember that last season, sometimes we weren't always fantastic in games last season. We like 3-0 wins against St Johnstone and St Mirren early on at Ibrox last season. But in those games, we were posed a lot of problems. We were quite quiet for a lot of those games. Remember us beating Kilmarnock 2-0 early doors, and in the first half, we were terrible. We weren't at the races at all, and then just suddenly it happens. I think there's a kind of minimalism, there's a kind of economy of performance about this team. And I think they're actually pretty laid back, and they've been too laid back at times this season, and not having the same kind of consistency of squad on the park has maybe exacerbated that to the point where we're dropping more points than we would. Listen, we went to Motherwell last season, we won 5-1 in the first game, but with two penalties, 2 Tavernier penalties, so it was a conspiracy. Next time we go there, they've got rid of Stephen Robinson. Motherwell were the first team to score at Ibrox last season against us that game in December. And we go there after they've got rid of Robinson, they go to Graham Alexander and they drew with us, and they were on the up. And they're doing quite well, but I actually fancy us away from home. That's another thing we can look into, the home form versus away form. Is it the crowd's back? Whatever. I heard the first real howl of derision the other night, and that's a thing a lot of Rangers players will be experiencing for the first time. But I'm actually more confident about us away from home, and I'm glad we're away from home on Sunday.
Onto the squad update, Stewart. Ryan Kent, Ryan Jack, Gerrard was saying today that they're not far away. I think Ryan Kent, he suggested he might be able to feature on Thursday night. Ryan Jack, a couple of weeks away as usual. But I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that they think they too, when they're back, would make the difference. I was kind of the opinion on Wednesday night after Wednesday night's game. I'm thinking, well, one, Kent didn't look like he was in the best of form when he was in the team before he was out injured. And two, I don't think Ryan Jack. I love Ryan Jack; he's a great player, but I'm not convinced that he's going to provide enough to improve this team's form. Is that how you see it? Do you think they will really boost us, or is the malaise in this team too deep for these two individuals to change it?
Yeah, I mean, in the case of Jack, he's a player that Gerrard admires, but unlike like somebody like Gerrard who could play deep and then break forward and smash balls in from 20 and 25 yards, that's not what you're expecting from Jack, is it? So how much he would shape or make a team better or different, I'm not quite sure. In terms of Kent, I do think Rangers have missed the kind of edge that he gives, and even as a distraction to the opposition, he is an advantage to Rangers in as much as he takes a bit of watching. Hence, and you'll have players waiting to see where he is on the pitch, and because of that, might be momentarily distracted because they're too busy watching him and allowing other things to happen, behind them. I think the one thing I would say is that these guys have been out for a wee while. I hope they're not rushed back too soon, and there's too much riding on them making these comebacks to the extent as almost when they're fit to walk again or fit to run again, they're pitched back into the team. I don't think that would be. I think that would be risky. I think that would be a gamble for Rangers because you're looking to get these guys fit moving into the winter period when you really need to start winning games and clocking up points. So I wouldn't like to see them rush back in. But again, it maybe tells you, we've heard so much about this Rangers squad being a beefed up squad that there's cover in every position, yet we're still talking about two guys that are actually missing. It's not that beefed up. There are not that many guys, putting their hand up or stepping forward and filling the void that these guys have left. And I think that may be one of the issues actually at Rangers just now, that the guys that are actually getting a chance are not really grasping these chances. The whole thing about youth team players coming in, he's playing great, he's this, he's that, he's the next thing. That exists in cloud cuckoo land. Do you know what I mean? I've seen guys coming in and suddenly making or getting a start and maybe scoring a goal, but to keep that as that kind of sustained form and maintain a place in the team or in the manager's thoughts doesn't really happen. You have to go with the kind of squad that you've got, and again, I think there are guys within the squad who are getting a chance who haven't really done enough. They haven't stepped up. But then again, they haven't looked as if they want to step up. They'll just look as if they're content actually being in the first team squad, and that's not good enough for Rangers this season.
Alex, on to Motherwell. Now, obviously, they're one of the teams that have taken points off us, that 1-1 draw at Ibrox. They were kind of flying at that point. They've struggled a wee bit since. I think they've only won one game in the last 5, kind of slipped down the table a wee bit. I think they're sitting in 6th at the moment. That said, it's Stewart sort of pointed out earlier on, Fir Park, and it's been a tricky venue for us in the past. And as I said, there might be a bit of pressure on us after if Celtic are top of the league after Saturday's game.
Stephen Gerrard's first time at Fir Park early on in his first season. That was we're a goal down and then we're a goal up, and again the classic, what I'm now seeing as a pattern of us conceding a sickeningly late equaliser.
You never make a sub at a corner though, Alex. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Bringing Lee Wallace on and anyway.
It's every scenario. What happened last week at Paisley? 6.5 minutes into 7 minutes injury time, we've got a free kick outside the St Mirren box. I'm sitting there going, but they're going to get a corner. Yeah. St Mirren are going to get a corner. And St Mirren get a corner and they bring the goalkeeper up in the 7th minute. I mean, this is where I sound like the spoiled get. But it's happened 4 or 5 times this season. The one thing I was glad about the other night was we actually did the equalising late on, and we didn't give away a silly corner at the end, but we dropped 2 bloody points. You're right. It's a hard venue. We won there 5-1 last season, but that was the kind of dying embers of Stephen Robinson's reign, and I think Motherwell were just back from a trip to Israel in Europe. We'd been basically at Schiphol Airport. We'd been away to see Willem II, so we were back in the space of 20 minutes probably. We were all fresh and ready to go, and we blew them away. But by the time they got Alexander in, and we went back there to Fir Park, it was Big Cedric was doing the equalising. He's the hammer of the well. 4 goals he got against in the league last season, so he's not there. Jordan Jones isn't there. George Edmondson isn't there to score for Motherwell against us. That's fair enough. But
that's a bonus.
That's a wee bonus. But no, I just want to see them go out there, mate. And all I can think to say now is that spark. I want to see his. Look, we played scintillating football against Porto and all that in the seasons we didn't win the league. Gerrard's first couple of seasons. We can turn it on, we can turn it off, and I think they deserve that bit of time. We are still top of the league. Listen, if this is how it's going to go every kind of time we go through the full schedule, and yes, we play everybody for 2 points further ahead. I'd be quite happy to win the league by 6 or 8 points, whatever it is, end of this season. But I don't think we can sustain it. You need a mental breather. You need a big win just to reassure the players that they can do it.
You also need a clean sheet, Alex, don't you?
Yeah.
Aye, that as well, mate. Aye.
It would be so important for Rangers just to be able to score one and then rely on a defence that isn't pressurised or isn't pushed. But you're right in what you said earlier on there. That guarantee is just not there. You never look at that Rangers team as if they say, "Oh, they'll just shut up shop." No, they'll shut up shop and leave the back door open, and that's what they've done time and time again.
I think that's the thing, Stuart. That's why, as I say, you don't know about to stick or twist when it comes to how you're assessing them this season. It's like that's what didn't happen last season. It happened in the Scottish Cup against St Johnstone. It happened in a kind of relatively meaningless game against Hamilton Accies in the league, where we didn't get that second goal and it cost us. But this season, you're kind of thinking that is happening, and I think that the judgment of the team just now is on that cusp, which is, I think, is absolutely horrible. Of saying last season was the freak. We just, it was almost a one-off. But we're top of the league this season. We've actually started this season better than any of the previous 2 seasons under Gerrard. So I think it's just a lack of momentum. Stevie G's team, the last 3 seasons, has started the season improving heavily on the previous season. This is the one time we've went backwards.
Can I just add in there that we're talking about players that are missing in that spark, dare I say it again. But if you look at the guy who really started last season like a buzz bomb, Tavernier, with the goals that he scored and the goals that he created and the presence that he had, and the fact that the opposition teams started marking a fullback rather than other players. Rangers just don't have that cutting edge or that that kind of input from Tavernier this year. I would say if he was, for the first couple of months of last season, was an 8 or a 9 most weeks, I would say he'd be lucky to be averaging 6 or 7. Hence the reason why his position's even coming under pressure and people are talking up Patterson. Nobody talked about Patterson this time last season, simply because Tavernier was being so creative and providing such a contribution to Rangers, either in the goals that he scored or the assists that he made. So the results are down, the results are not as good, the points total's down, the goals are down, but the performance level amongst some individuals is down as well, and I think you need to take that into account.
It's funny you say that, because I was on the WhatsApp to David Wren a couple of days ago, and we were talking about it, and we were saying, what do we think's wrong? And my view was kind of what you're saying there now, Stuart. I says we got so much out the fullbacks last year, both Tav and Borna. I mean, how many times did Borna cross for Tav? You know what I mean? Yeah. Tavernier was scoring onto a Borna assist, and we got so much out of Ryan Kent last year as well. So those are 3 players that have not really contributed to the same extent this year, but you can't just lump it on them. But it kind of ties into what you're saying there, Stuart. Final point before we wrap up for tonight. Obviously Rangers a bit rocky defensively. I was kind of looking at Motherwell's players today. Tony Watt's probably the main goal threat. He's got 7 goals in 11 games. I think it's 4 with his right foot, 3 with his head. So he can mix it up a wee bit. He also seems to have settled down. He was a bit of a journeyman for a while there. He was going to every club under the sun, but he seems to have settled at Motherwell. Stuart, and probably their main threat on Sunday, I would say.
Yeah, I think the main threat for Rangers fans is, however, the assist that the Rangers defence might give Motherwell. Teams don't need that much of an invitation to cause Rangers real damage just now. And I would say that's the biggest threat of all, the opportunities that Rangers might present to Motherwell. And Motherwell will take them because they're pretty confident. Although I have to say, if you look at their form over the last 5 matches, you're talking about 3 losses and a draw in there from Motherwell. And maybe they're not as good or not as consistent as what we are making up in our heads just now, compared to the Rangers team that are actually going to be visiting Fir Park. But I don't, the games against Motherwell have always been difficult. I cannot really remember Rangers just turning up either at Fir Park or even at Ibrox and rolling Motherwell over easily or comfortably. Motherwell have always been difficult to get a result against, and especially at home. But I somehow, I don't know what I've based it on, but I somehow think that Rangers actually might win this game and win it quite comfortably.
I suppose, Alex, I'll give you the sort of final say here. It comes down to teams. I think teams fancy themselves against Rangers now. You know what I mean? Whereas last season they didn't. But hopefully we'll get that spark on Sunday, and hopefully a routine win, and set us up for moving forward.
I like to go deep with the research, Colin. I looked heavily into Tony Watt.
I'm glad you said research there, Alex. To be honest.
That's the only thing I can actually go deep. But we'll talk about that. Apparently, that's Tony Watt. Apparently, he scored against Barcelona. I don't know if anybody.
I heard that. I heard the wee rumour. Aye.
But I say it took me a few days to find that out. I couldn't see it anywhere on the internet. But
I thought he was a film critic.
What?
I thought he was a film critic. He'd have a podcast or something like that where he was looking at film. Aye, he was a kind of North Lanarkshire's Barry Norman.
Well, I hope
you making this up, Stuart?
No.
All right.
stranger than that, I saw that he had a trial for Rangers. That was on his Wikipedia page. I don't know if that's a bit of wiki vandalism or whatever.
No,
but
it probably has, I'd imagine.
I mean, he's for Cope Bridge, so obviously he's got to be an Albion Rovers fan, so we've got no chance of getting him. But you're talking about the fullbacks there, the bombing forward that's not happening. And the first team that he kind of stopped us doing that last season was Motherwell in that game at Ibrox in December. And Tony Watt ran himself into the ground there out in the wing. The big man's he's got a reputation for being a bit lazy, not being as fit as he could be, but he's found a bit of form. He's getting a few penalties though for the pro Motherwell conspiracy that it's taking a hold of the SPFL.
The Lanarkshire Mafia.
The Lanarkshire Mafia, mate. You know. And if you get caught, you get punished by getting sent to third party for 10 games in a row. But he's a big handful. But it's all about us. It is all about us. If we want to get out there and get back to ourselves, get bombing forward, and just play our own game as we know we can. Hopefully, the kind of criticism teams come under is up them. There's a reason for being a bit of a dwam this week, but hopefully they'll come out fighting again on Sunday, and we'll get that form back.
Hopefully. Right, guys, I think we've pretty much covered everything there. So big thanks to Stewart and Alex for their time there. Remember, folks, that we were live tonight, but the show will be available to download and stream on a variety of platforms from tomorrow, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, Spotify, all the usual places. We'll have a show out on Sunday night to obviously cover the game on Sunday. I think Ross is hosting and Ian Duff is on, and we're trying to get someone else to step in as well. We'll see what happens. In the meantime,
probably me, you again, Colin.
Probably will be. I'll be hod it and dod it again. In the meantime, get yourself onto the Gersnet website and forums at www.gersnet.co.uk. Until Sunday, guys. Bye for now.